So let's talk about, we talked about for our listeners or our viewers out there who are new to podcasting, how do I even get started listening to podcasts? And we talked about podcatchers, how to subscribe, and what to do after I listen to an episode I really enjoy. I'm going to push it out there. If I have some questions, I'm going to contact the host, something like that, so I can still engage with the content that I'm learning about. Now, let's talk about pressing record. Let's go through step by step from idea, from little kernel idea, all the way to pressing record. And Chris, I'm going to kick it off to you. Where do we get started? What are our first steps? Break it down for us. If I could beatbox, I would, but I can't. So,
well, first you need thousands of dollars to start a podcast, from equipment to microphone. No, I'm kidding. You don't need thousands of dollars. For you listening or watching, look at your smartphone. You can start there because that has a microphone. Okay. That can be, getting in on the ground floor. You've got a microphone. You can take an audio note. You can share that out. Okay. But if you want to get into podcasting, the first thing I think you need to do is decide, what do you want to talk about? What are you interested in? What could you talk about on end for free and you want to learn more about and share? Again, for me, that's education technology, or it could be your favorite TV show or a movie or, a book. It doesn't matter. You can do a podcast about duct tape wallet making. Okay. If you're interested in something and you want to talk about it, you can find and build a community around that topic. So first, decide what it is you want to create content about, and then get a piece of paper and make a list of 15 to 20 individual topics about that topic that you could make episodes about, and start there.
yeah, I'm going to chime in there. So I think that was my first question to you, Chris, when we first had our Google Hangout. How do I get started? What do I do? You're like, find a topic that you like. And it was working with future teachers. And then what are subtopics within that huge topic that you could talk about? And I have a Google Keep memo on my phone where I just pop in ideas as they come to me, or as tweets come out. I'm like, oh, that'd be a great episode. And then I also ask my audience, like, hey, what do you want to hear about? And sometimes people chime in and share what they want to hear about. For example, there's a student teacher, Morgan Durham, who's like, can you share about grant writing and EdTPA and this and this and this? Like, oh, great, we got 6 episodes. Awesome, thank you. So I think having a list of topics that you're always adding to can be really helpful. Sarah, what about you? What are some strategies that you have to get us started?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Chris said about, like, all you really need is your phone, like the Anchor.fm app. There's several different podcasting apps out there, but Anchor.fm, for example, there's an app you could just like connect your earpods to it and just go ahead and fly with it. I would also second what you said, Sam, about having that list that people can add to with different topics. So for me, then all I could really add would be to plan it, but not over plan, right? Like, because I am very guilty of over planning to the point that I will plan something to death and it never gets done. But just having like that basic outline of, who am I doing this for? Where am I trying to go with it? What is the topic? So asking yourself the who, what, when, where, and how questions, and just being able to answer those questions and having like kind of an outline of different things that you want to talk about. And just go ahead and, find whatever your workflow is to get your podcast done. Again, I'm not receiving any kickback or whatever, but I found that Anchor.fm is a very simple way for people to get started. So just going in and using that, or any other methods, like my personal method, I use Zoom, and I just like edit the video and put the edited video up. I strip the audio, put the audio content out. So whatever your workflow is, just getting it done, getting that minimum viable product out, the MVP, and just, building from there. Like I have a couple of friends who have a very successful podcast. So Mike Washburn, Glenn Irving, and I remember that they had an idea to do it, and they just did an episode 0, and they're always going on their show talking about this mysterious episode 0 that like has never seen the light of day, but only like maybe 10 people have listened to it, and I'm one of those 10. So I can tell you that podcast, that episode 0, I mean, it was a good start, and I told them that. But the difference between then and now is like, whoosh, like, mind blowing. So it's all about building the plane while you're flying it. So don't feel like it has to be polished, perfect, whatever. Just just get it up, get it going, and just refine it as you go along.
Yeah, I agree. Just get it up, get it recorded. Like Chris says, just hit record. And there's a question in the chat that I want to bring up for our whole audience. We have Grace who wants to talk about how to create a podcast. I'm talking about creating a podcast or film for your podcast. So Sarah, you shared about Anchor FM. Chris, what are some podcasting platforms or recording platforms that you would suggest here?
I would recommend, if you are on really any platform, I'm a big fan of Audacity, which is free, which is my favorite 4-letter F word. So it's available on Windows, it's available on Mac. If you are more of a Mac person and you're familiar with GarageBand, you can create a podcast using GarageBand. There are some web-based audio programs out there, like Soundtrap is a web-based audio editor. There's one, it's got Wave. Twisted Wave is web-based, so maybe if you've got a Chromebook, or maybe there's somebody in the audience who wants to do this with students, if you've got Chromebooks, Twisted Wave, Soundtrap, or web-based audio editors, those would be some of the platforms I would recommend. I mean, if you've got money, sure, you could go out and maybe try a Hindenburg Journalist, or, Logic Pro, or, something to that level. But I've been creating since 2014, and I've used Audacity since day one.
I too use Audacity to record the shows. Once we have our topics, we have an outline of what we're going to talk about during our show. Maybe we have a guest, maybe it's a solo episode. We have it recorded either in Audacity or Anchor. How do we get that recording and get it out there to the world? Because it lives on say we use Audacity or GarageBand, and right now it lives on our computer. How do we get it out there? Chris, I'm going to start with you. What are some ways we can start? Is producing the right word? Getting the word out there? Well, help me out here with words and phrases. It's hard.
So you've recorded your podcast, you've created an MP3 file. How do you get thousands upon thousands of people to listen to it?
There you go.
Well,
thank you. That's so much better than what I said.
There's a couple of ways you can do it. First, as Sarah alluded to, you can use something like Anchor, which is an app on iOS that you can record right into the app, and you can basically click publish, and boom, it is out to the world. Anchor will make it easy to get into Apple Podcasts and Spotify and everywhere that you can get podcasts. The nice thing is, once you submit a podcast to Apple Podcasts, there are a lot of apps, like we talked about earlier, that pull from the Apple Podcast directory. So if you go into Pocket Cast, or you go into Overcast, or even Google Podcasts, they're kind of pulling from that main directory. And just so nobody's confused, being an Apple Podcast is like being in the phone book. So if you still remember what a phone book is, nobody bragged about being in the phone book. There's that Steve Martin movie where he's like, "Oh, I'm in the phone book. I'm public." That's not what it's about. So once you get in there, you can be everywhere. Okay. And there are some places where you need to manually submit your podcast, like Stitcher, like Spotify, depending on where you're hosting your podcast. TuneIn.com is a place where you have to manually submit your podcast. So when you launch your show, you might want to search for podcast directories, and the results you get, submit your show to those places. Am I on the right track, or am I going off the rails, Sam?
You're absolutely where you need to be. Yeah, keep going. This is excellent. Okay.
Where do we want to put them? Oh, do we want to talk about media hosts?
That's what I was going to go to next. Yep, go for it.
Okay, so Anchor allows you to create and also host your podcast, and they give you a nice little webpage where you can direct people online. I use a media host called Libsyn, Libsyn, and that's short for Liberated Syndication. They've been a podcast media host company since 2004, and all they do is host media files, not web pages, not websites, not images, but it's a place where you can upload your finished audio file, so an MP3 file. You could also use something like blueberry.com, which I think doesn't have the E in Blueberry. If you search for Blueberry podcast hosting, there's a couple of vowels missing, due to Web 2.0 stuff. But once you get your podcast on a host, your host will generate something that's called an RSS feed. Now, if you've been to websites or you've subscribed to blogs and written posts, the term RSS should be familiar. When it comes to podcasting, your RSS feed is like, it's like the radio signal when you tune in your car stereo in the car. Okay. So, here in New Jersey, if I want to listen to, 100.3, I'm going to get a certain type of music. Or if I turn on, WFAN on another station, I'm going to get, sports talk. And it's that station. So my RSS feed is like my little signal that you subscribe to get my content. And that's what appears in the directories. So Apple Podcasts, iTunes, you don't upload to Apple, you don't upload to iTunes, you send your content to a media host. And then that media host distributes your files to all of the directories that you as the listener are subscribing to. So the nice thing is if you have a reliable host like Anchor, like Libsyn, like Blueberry, if like the website goes down or the directory goes down, you're subscribed to that RSS feed, you're still going to get my content. ChrisNesi.com could explode overnight, but you're still going to get my content with the way I have it configured, which is nice to know.
I love that. Thank you. So Chris talked about Libsyn, Blueberry. I use Spreaker to host mine and get it out there.
I forgot Spreaker. I'm so sorry.
What? That's okay. It's all good. It's on my coffee latte budget. So so is Libsyn, I guess. So, I mean, they're both the same amount. I think it costs like, I don't know. I don't remember how much.
I pay $7 a month to host my podcast.
It could be like $7 or $8 a month. Yeah. There's other ones you can use to host for free, right?
Anchor is free.
Yeah, Anchor is free. And Sarah, have you used Podbean?
I was using Podbean, but then I moved over to Anchor because of Chris's favorite word, free. So yeah, but yeah, I was using Podbean for a while, and I really did like it. Before that, I used Podomatic. So Podomatic was where I very first started. But then when I got more and more files, it became more and more expensive. So I then moved to Podbean because it was an unlimited amount of storage for whatever amount per month. I want to say $14.99 or something. But then when I saw Anchor was free, I was just like, oh, okay, free. So I checked out all the privacy policies and everything, made sure everything was legit. And I was just like, all right, let me just go ahead and move my stuff over here. So I've been doing that since probably December. And it carried over most of my stuff. I think I might have to go back in and re-upload a few files, but it was pretty seamless for me. But I know a lot of people also like SoundCloud. That's one I see a lot of people using. But yeah, I mean, like really the functionality out of the three that I've used, I haven't really seen much of a difference functionally. They all pretty much did the same thing functionally, but yeah, there's so many different options out there that it's really cool.
I have to do my due diligence. Hold on. People, don't use SoundCloud, people. Please don't use SoundCloud. If you want to, if you decide I want to try podcasting and you're not really committed to really diving into the deep end, go ahead, put it on SoundCloud, play around. But if you have long-term plans to really build content, you wouldn't build your house on the beach right at the water line. So from what I know over the last few years and talking with podcasters who do way more than I do in this industry, SoundCloud could go out of business at any point. I mean, last year they were kept afloat by, I can't think of the company, but they got a $75 million investment. And, they talk about SoundCloud could go at any time. And you might get a notification that says, hey, we're going to shut down in 30 days, get your stuff off. Or you might get that email that says, we're closed and all your stuff is gone. You can't connect with your audience. So if you want to play podcasting, play in SoundCloud. But if you really want to build something and create something that's going to last ongoing, find one of these other platforms that really takes care of podcasters and supports podcasters and podcasting. And if you have more questions about that, reach out to me and I'll be happy to help.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chris. Thanks for sharing that out there. So we have our topics. We did our episode. We recorded it. We pushed it out on the media hosting. Now, how do we get the thousands of listeners to our podcast? How do we share it out there about our awesome content that we created, either with an interview or maybe we're just talking and doing a solo episode? Sarah, I'm going to start with you. What are some of your strategies? I mean, girl, you got 3 podcasts. How are you sharing it out there? How are you letting the world know about new episodes that come out? How are you getting the word out about your different episodes and content that you're sharing?
Oh, this is great timing that you asked this question. I just recorded a module like maybe about a week ago. I'm doing a course on podcasting. So that was like that was the next to the last module about how to get it out there. Like once you have it, because once you have it recorded, then that's great. That's definitely something to be applauded. But if a tree falls in the forest and it doesn't hear a sound, then, it's like one of those things. So you definitely want to make sure that you get your content out there. So what has worked for me has been a couple of different things. So one of them is using social media to definitely get the word out. So Chris has mentioned Podcast PD that he started up, as well as, the different podcast networks. So maybe seeing if there's like a good fit after you've gotten a few under your belt and you kind of, get the feel of it. Seeing if you can find a home there. But I would say first and foremost, get your social media out there. So there's lots of different tools that you can use. One of them is wave.co, where you can take like a little snippet, and it's like freemium, right? So you can get a certain amount for free. So you can take a snippet of your podcast and put it out there on social media, tagging the guests, asking them to amplify, things of that nature. But I would say for me, quite honestly, and this is going to sound so Pollyanna, so Hallmarkish, so hokey, but for me, the biggest return on investment has been investing in other people. So being part of the community, being an avid consumer, even a fan of like people whose shows that you respect, what they're doing, just supporting one another. And when you support other people, they go out of their way to support you as well. So I would say not doing it per se to be like, oh yeah, tit for tat, retweet me, I'll retweet you, but genuinely being invested in what other folks are doing, inviting them on your show, and that way, not only will you get people listening to your show to share out, as both of you have mentioned, reaching out and asking the audience to share, but also people with networks to support your show as well, and you doing the same for theirs. So that would be like a couple of my tips in a nutshell.
I never heard the term Pollyanna before, and I don't think that's Pollyanna at all. I think that's I mean, you talk about, you're such an advocate for the professional learning family, and I think that's so true with podcasting as well. That's my follow-up question for you. Can you share a little bit about how the professional learning family can help with that podcasting endeavor?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that it's all about the professional learning family, like all of it. It's all about a community. I heard both of you mention about the community aspect, and that is so powerful. It's not just like, I mean, there's a way to do it where you could have like individual people just kind of listening, getting their own thing. But I feel that the power is when you get folks to interact around your content, and from there you can draw in people to your show, amplify their voices, share great ideas that might not necessarily be heard in other media. And in addition, just like, a lot of times, not always, but cream rises to the top. So, if there's like some golden nugget in there, then it'll just get shared out and shared out and shared out. And, before you know it, then you're building your base. So it's really cool. It's a really beautiful process to watch unfold.
It really is. It's a lot of fun to see what resonates with listeners, what people are sharing out there. And it's very easy to share episodes too on your podcatcher right out to social media too. Usually it'll say currently listening to, and then it'll have the link or usually the link to the episode, and you can put in your own 2 cents there too. Chris, what about you? So we have our topic, we recorded, we put it on our hosting platform. How do we get the word out through the megaphone of social media or through an email list or something like that? How do we get the word out about our episode?
Well, first and foremost, if you're like most of us and you're an educator and you decide to start a podcast, please don't take offense to this, but when you launch and you put that first episode or those first few episodes out there, you don't really have an audience yet. You might have your PLF and you've got your community and people that you're connected with, but you're not Tim Ferriss. You're not, Tina Fey if you started a podcast where you've got this built-in audience to get these thousands of listens. So most of us are going to start from my wife listens, a friend listens, and it grows from there. In order to promote and market it, here's what you don't want to do. Don't immediately go out to Twitter or Facebook and say, hey, here's my new podcast. Here's my new podcast. Here's my new podcast. Here's my new episode. Here's my new episode. Listen, me. Bring value. Yes, many of us are a part of Twitter communities. We're a part of Facebook groups that relate to education, or we'll start to find communities and Facebook groups that relate to our topic for our podcast. Don't just walk in and say, here I am, listen to my podcast. Great way to get kicked out of a community for spam or ignored or blocked because you're just there to self-promote. Be a part of the community, engage with the people, make the connections first. If you want people to listen, they have to get to know you. You want them to develop you want them to like you and then trust you. Sure, if you're in a Twitter chat or in a Facebook group and there's a question or something comes up and you've created an episode that relates to that, share it. But you don't want to just go out and start to spam and say, new episode, new episode, new episode. I use Twitter to promote a lot of what I do for House of Ed Tech. And from my website, I have the ability to auto-generate tweets, but I try not to make it be 5 tweets an hour, every hour, on the hour. It's kind of spread out. I, try not to overwhelm. I have a column in TweetDeck for my show, and I can see who's interacting. And, I think I do like 1 or 2 tweets a day about past episodes. And I'll do 1 tweet about a new episode that I, will manually craft. That's my way of saying, I don't really do a good job at socially promoting the House of Ed Tech. I have really grown it from, mentioning when I introduce myself, I'm a teacher, I'm a podcaster. And then people will ask, oh, what do you mean you're a podcaster? What is that? What do you host? And then I can mention my show, not by just showing up and saying, hi, I'm Chris. I host the House of Ed Tech and you should listen. That's not going to get it done. You want to make connections with people and you'll find and build community around, again, your target audience. Who's your avatar? Who's your ideal listener? Who do you want to connect with? Those are the people you need to go out and meet. If people tweet about your show or tag you on Instagram, interact with everybody who interacts with your content, because none of us are so big that we can't favorite a tweet or say thank you or reply or retweet. Answer every email. If somebody emails you about your show, respond to them. Even if you can't give them the full response right away, let them know, hey, got your email. People just want to connect. You're going to build a relationship with the people who listen to your show, because listening to this content is very intimate. There are people who I listen to who I'll never meet, but I feel like they're my friend and I'm connected with them on Monday morning, on Thursday afternoon when their stuff comes out. And it actually, because I create content, I get kind of frustrated when I do try to reach out and I don't get that reciprocation of like, hey, thank you for your show, and you never hear anything. So I try to be very intentional about, if I would say I'm going to build community, I do that. And I want to respond to people. So again, it's about relationships.
Yes, I 100% agree. It truly is about relationships and building that with your community and friends. We all started with zero subscribers, 0 listeners, and wherever we are now, it really is a journey and just continues to grow. I want to end today's talk with one last piece of advice you have for beginning podcasters, and mine would be to be consistent with your content. If you say you're going to post on a weekly schedule, post on a weekly schedule. If whatever that looks like for you, just be consistent. And Sarah, I know that you have a great resource for beginning podcasters as well. You just created a podcasting course. Could you share a little bit about that course and how people can get started?
Yeah, sure. It is called Podcasting with Your PLN, and we just did the beta test. So that literally just dropped the final module about maybe 2 hours ago. So 6-week course. It's still up there, but as far as the actual launch is going to come in a few weeks. So this time was all about hammering out the kinks, squashing any bugs. So it was a really great experience, and everyone who participated in it just blew my mind, like seeing what they produced. And so it's the focus is specifically about creating with your PLN. So so that would also tie into my tip, would be as a person with a platform. So this podcast would give you a platform. So definitely looking for the unheard stories, because a lot of times, you know, there's so many people out there doing amazing things. So definitely featuring people whose stories resonate with you, yes, and also making it a point to seek out some voices that have not been heard. So that would be my tip.
I love that, seeking out voices that have not been heard and just shine a light on the work that they're doing in their district, in their school, in their classroom. I think that's incredible. Thank you so much for that tip. Thank you so much for offering the course. And Chris, what's your one last piece of advice for people who are new to podcasting?
Well, I'm going to be sneaky, so I'm going to give you two things. So first, if you're just here and you enjoy listening to podcasts, share it. Share what you're listening to. Reach out, say thank you, and spread the word about those podcasts that you enjoy. If you want to get into creating content, just hit record. Start to talk. Let people listen to it and go from there. You don't have to be great to start, but you do have to start to get great at it. And you may never be great, but if you don't hit record, you're not a podcaster. Sorry.
Chris, I just love all your tidbits there with the, you don't have to be great to press record, just press record and it'll be okay. Just try it out. Like you say, technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try. And I agree. I want to thank our panelists today, Dr. Sarah Thomas, Chris Nesi. Thank you so much for joining in on this conversation. It's been very valuable. I know we got lots of value for our listeners when it comes to how do I even get started listening to podcasts? How do I subscribe? To how do I create from topic idea all the way out to publishing and pushing out our content and hitting record, like Chris says. I'm going to thank you so much for your time today. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Vlatka, for having us host today. It's been an amazing experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you to everyone who was
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you, Dr. Fecich and Dr. Sarah Thomas. It was always fun to talk with you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh, thank you. Same here. Y'all are awesome. Thank you for everything.
8,000 retweets happened on Twitter so far today, so people have been listening, people have been watching, and this will be on YouTube soon. Is that better? Sorry. There we go. Sorry, my phone's
There you
up.
go.
I'm just saying, I was saying that there's over 8,000 shares just now on Twitter, so people have been watching and listening to what you've been saying, so great stuff for you guys. You've been sharing some real pearls of wisdom here that I think I might even think about. And in the background too, we have Tim, who's one of the Sidwad organizers, and he said, "Why doesn't Sidwad have a podcast?" So you never know. Could be coming to your town sometime soon. You know,
Yeah.
really,
How is there not a Connected Educators podcast? What are we doing here?
I think this should be the first episode.
That sounds good, huh? That sounds great with guest hosts, indeed. So no, this is fantastic. So give me about a week, and I'll get this off on YouTube. And as I said, if you follow this tweet on Twitter, please share with the folks in your personal network. You've given a whole heap of resources that are fantastic. You've given some fantastic steps to begin. The why, the how, couldn't ask for more. Thank you so much.